The Aster Vale was never meant to be anyone's hero. She was a 40-year-old bulk hauler with a spine of patched girders, a reactor that wheezed like an old smoker, and a hull scarred by 1,000 silent collisions. Her registry had expired twice, her insurance had lapsed 3 times, and every credit she earned went straight back into keeping her breathing. She smelled of coolant, burnt wiring, and the faint sweetness of ration stew that had boiled over one too many times. But she was home. Elias. Rourke sat in the pilot's cradle, boots on the console, staring at the silver-white ribbons of hyperspace sliding past the viewport. 36 years old, broad-shouldered, unshaven, eyes the color of deep space after too many sleepless nights. Grief had carved permanent lines around his mouth. The kind of grief that doesn't shout, just settles in the bones and stays. 2 hours to the next drift checkpoint, Mira said from the hatchway. She was small, sharp-eyed, perpetually streaked with grease. Her coveralls had once been navy. Now they were the color of old engine oil. She wiped her hands on a rag that had given up being clean years ago. Anything rattling back there that isn't supposed to? Elias asked without turning. Everything rattles back there, Myra replied. That's how I know she's alive. Behind them. The rest of the crew moved through their tiny world of corridors and cramped compartments. Yalin, the cook, hummed an old Earth hymn while reheating something that might once have been beef. His apron had a faded crucifix stitched over the heart. Raffi 19, all elbows and nervous energy balanced a stack of maintenance logs like they were holy relics. 4 humans. No Marines. No scientists. Just people trying to keep a tired ship flying, and the bills paid. Just another quiet. Run. The quiet never lasted. The first pulse came without warning. The lights dimmed. The deck plates thrummed with a vibration that wasn't sound. It was pressure sliding through metal and bone alike. A second pulse followed. Then a third, perfectly spaced, perfectly alien. Elias snapped upright. That's not us. Mira was already at the auxiliary panel. External, wide band, and it's talking. The main screen flickered, then resolved into symbols. Curved, luminous, rearranging themselves faster than human eyes could follow. They hurt to watch, like trying to read music written in migraine. Raffi stumbled onto the bridge, eyes huge. Captain. That's not in any registry. That's not even human geometry. Another pulse. The symbols shifted again, forming a deliberate pattern. 3 pulses, pause, 3 again. A greeting dot or a countdown. JLEN appeared in the doorway, ladle still in hand. Please tell me that's the coffee machine finally achieving sentience. It's not the coffee machine, Elias said quietly. He opened passive sensors. The star lines blurred, then snapped into focus on a single point dead ahead. Something was there, not a blip. Not a signature. A presence. The Aster Vale's running lights dimmed as if the ship herself leaned forward to look. The shape that resolved out of the dark was wrong in ways language failed. It was winged, but the wings were not solid. They flexed like living obsidian, drinking starlight instead of reflecting it. No visible engines. No emissions. Just perfect, predatory silence. It hung in the void like a hole cut in the shape of a ship. Mira's voice was barely a breath. They found us. No, Elias said. We found them. Another pulse. This one warmer, almost curious. The alien symbols rearranged into a single unmistakable request. Permission to dock. Elias felt every eye on him. 4 humans who had never trained for this, never wanted it. They were haulers, not diplomats. They fixed engines, not history. Raffi's whisper cracked. Captain. What do we do? Elias stared at the impossible ship, at the symbols asking for trust across a gulf wider than stars. He thought of everything he'd lost. Wife, daughter, the years swallowed by the black. He thought of the crew behind him who still had something to go home to. Then he exhaled, slow and steady, the way a man lets fear leave with his breath. "Open the outer bay," he said. Slow, non-threatening, lights on welcome, not warning. Yalin crossed himself. Raffi looked like he might faint. Mira met Elias's eyes. "If they wanted us dead, we'd be vapor already." "Exactly." The bay doors began to cycle. Steam hissed across the deck plating. Frost crystals glittered under the floodlights. Something was coming aboard. Elias stepped forward to meet it, heart hammering against his ribs like it wanted out. He was not a hero. He was tired, grieving, and terrified. But he was the captain, and sometimes that was enough. From the darkness of the docking umbilical, a shape emerged. Tall, fluid, plated in living night. It moved with the grace of something that had never known gravity as a master. It stopped 3 meters away, and it looked at Elias with eyes that weren't eyes at all. The alien tilted its head, armor plates shifting like black water, and extended one long, impossible arm. Elias raised his own hand. Slow, palm open, humanity's first handshake with the stars began with 2 frightened beings reaching across the void. Praying neither one flinched first. For a long moment, no one breathed. The alien stood 8 feet tall, plated in shifting obsidian that drank the bay lights and gave nothing back. Its limbs were too long, jointed wrong, ending in smooth curves instead of hands. Where a face should have been, only subtle ridges and slits moved like gills tasting the air. No mouth, no eyes. Yet Elias felt watched, measured, known. Behind it, 2 more emerged from the umbilical. One smaller, quicker, its plates edged with faint bioluminescent veins. The other broad and heavy, carrying a staff that hummed with restrained violence. 3 of them. 3 of us on the deck. 4 if you counted the ship herself. Elias kept his palm raised. The alien mirrored the gesture, then folded its arm until a single plate over its chest flared violet. A sound, like glass struck underwater, rippled through the bay. Then, impossibly, a voice formed inside Elias's skull. Not words at first, just pressure, warmth, curiosity. It shaped itself slowly, clumsily, the way a child learns to hold a cup. Eli. Asses. The sound scraped across his thoughts like fingernails on frost. Elias's knees nearly buckled. Hearing his own name spoken by something that had never possessed lungs was a violation and a miracle at once. He swallowed, tapped his chest. Elias. The alien's plates flared again. The violet light pulsed brighter, almost proud. Volkar, it offered. The name arrived with the taste of ozone and distant thunder. Velkar, Elias repeated aloud. The alien's entire frame shimmered, as if pleased. Mira took one careful step forward. "We should show them we're not a threat," Raffi squeaked. "With what? We don't have a welcome basket." Mira ignored him, reached into her belt, and produced the one thing every mechanic carries like a talisman, a battered, 30-year-old adjustable spanner. She held it up slowly, both hands visible. The broad guard reacted instantly. Its staff snapped horizontal, the hum rising to a teeth-rattling whine. Blue-white energy coiled along its length. The smaller alien flared its bioluminescence into warning crimson. Mira froze. Elias stepped between them, hands high. Tool, not weapon, tool. Velkar tilted its head, studying. Then, with deliberate calm, it extended its own arm. The limb unfolded like liquid mercury, forming a perfect replica of Myra's spanner, down to the rust spots and the worn grip. It held the copy for a moment, turned it, tasted the concept of wrench. The staff's whine dropped to a purr. The guard relaxed a fraction. Velkar let the metal spanner dissolve back into its arm, then pointed at Mira and produced a low, resonant trill that felt suspiciously like laughter. Mira let out a shaky laugh of her own. "Glad my life's work amuses you." Yalin, ever the peacemaker, disappeared and returned with a tray, 4 chunks of dark bread, a bowl of dried fruit, and a single steaming mug of broth. He set it on a crate like an offering. Velkar regarded the food the way a scholar regards an ancient text. It crouched, graceful, impossible, and touched the bread. A thin tendril extended from its palm, absorbed the crumb. The violet light in its chest flared gold. The alien froze. For 3 heartbeats, it did nothing. Then the gold spread through every plate, every seam, until Velkar glowed like a captive sunrise. It straightened slowly and looked at Yalin with something that could only be wonder. Warm. It said directly into all their minds at once. The single word carried oceans of meaning. Gratitude, recognition, kinship. Jalin's eyes filled. "You're welcome," he whispered. Velkar turned to Elias. The voice in his head was clearer now, still accented with static, but unmistakably earnest. "Your species. Small, heat brief. Yet you make warmth that lingers." Elias felt his throat close. He thought of his daughter's laugh echoing in an empty house, of the way Mira still set an extra mug out for a brother who would never drink it again, of Raffi humming his mother's lullabies while patching hull plates. "Yeah," he managed. "We do." Velkar stepped closer until the alien's chest nearly touched Elias's. The plates over its heart unfolded like black petals, revealing a cavity of soft violet light. Inside floated a single shard of crystal, no longer than a finger, pulsing gently. "A gift," Velkar said. "Memory. Proof we met. Proof you are." More. Elias took the shard. It was warm, alive, thrumming like a second heartbeat against his palm. Before he could speak, the aster veil lurched hard enough to throw Raffi to his knees. Red lights strobed. The deck vibrated with a subsonic growl that had nothing to do with engine stop. Mira was already sprinting for the corridor. That came from outside. Elias met Velkar's unseen gaze. "What is it?" The alien's plates snapped shut into defensive obsidian. Every trace of warmth vanished, replaced by something ancient and hunted. Hunter-seed, Velkar said, voice suddenly thin. "Void drifter. It smells your heat. It comes." The ship groaned again. Longer, deeper. Metal screamed somewhere aft. Velkar's guards raised their staffs. The smaller alien's bioluminescence bled into ultraviolet alarm. "Run," Velkar said, and for the first time the translator could not hide the fear. Not for itself. For them. Elias gripped the crystal shard until it cut his palm. "Then we run together." He turned and shouted down the corridor, voice raw but steady. "All hands. Battle stations. We've got incoming." The impact flung Elias into the bulkhead, so hard the stars in his vision had nothing to do with the ones outside. Alarms howled. The deck tilted 15 degrees and kept going, gravity plates stuttering like a dying heart. Mira's voice crackled over the intercom, raw with panic and fury. "Hull breach in Section 7. Something just peeled us open like a tin of beans." Elias hauled himself hand over hand along the corridor rail. Velkar flowed beside him, feet never quite touching the deck, plates locked into seamless armor that reflected the strobing red lights like spilled blood. "Status." Elias barked as he slammed onto the bridge. Raffi was already at sensors, face bleached white. 4 contacts. No, wait, 5. "Captain, they're huge. Kilometers long. They're not ships, they're alive." The main screen painted the nightmare in cold blue wireframe. 5 serpentine silhouettes, ribbed and skeletal, drifting through the void on membranes that caught starlight like frost on spider silk. Each one ended in a crown of luminous tendrils, dozens of them. Every tendril tipped with a mouth that opened and closed, hungrily on nothing. Void drifters, vacuum predators older than planets. Velkar's voice arrived inside Elias's skull, stripped of ceremony. "They hunt heat. Reactor heat. Life heat. Any heat. Your ship is a bonfire in a snowstorm. Another impact. The lights died completely, replaced by the sickly glow of emergency strips. Somewhere aft, something screeched against the hull. Metal tearing like paper. Yalan stumbled in, crucifix clenched in one fist, fire suppressant canister in the other. Section 8's gone. Atmosphere's venting. We have minutes. Elias stared at the screen. 5 living nightmares circling closer, patient as glaciers, hungry as black holes. Options, he said. His voice didn't shake. He refused to let it. Mira's face appeared on the engineering monitor, streaked with blood and coolant. We can't outrun them. Engines are wounded. We can't fight them. Nothing we have even scratches them. We can't hide. They smell heat across a light hour. Velkar stepped forward. One arm unfolded into a blade of violet light. We deter, we do not kill. Their kind cannot be killed, only. Discouraged out Elias met the alien's unseen gaze. Then we discourage the hell out of them. Mira, how long to rig a flare charge? 10 minutes if I cut every safety. Do it in 6. Rafi's voice cracked. A flare won't. It will if we make it the hottest thing in 100 million kilometers. Elias turned to Velkar. Your people chased these things off once. How? Velkar hesitated, an almost human gesture. We sacrificed a moon. Great, Yalan muttered. We don't have a moon. We have something better, Elias said. We have human stupidity and a hold full of volatile mining charges. Mira's eyes lit with manic understanding. You want to vent the entire deuterium reserve as a directed plasma torch? I want to light the biggest match the void has ever seen. Velkar's plates flared in what might have been admiration or horror, madness, beautiful madness. Another impact. This one punched through 2 decks. The ship listed hard. Frost exploded across the inner hull as air screamed out into vacuum. Elias grabbed the intercom. All hands, abandon aft sections. Seal bulkheads. Mira, you have 4 minutes. Move, he turned to Velkar. Your guards, can they hold the breach? Velkar signaled. The broad guard planted its staff against the deck. Energy rippled outward, forming a shimmering seal across the ruptured corridor. The smaller alien sprinted aft, trailing violet light, buying seconds with its life. Elias felt the ship dying under his feet and refused to let her go. Mira's voice came back, breathless. Charges rigged to the starboard maneuvering thrusters. When I blow the reserve tanks, we'll get 1 directed sunburst. 30-second burn. After that, we're a drifting coffin. 30 seconds is a lifetime, Elias said. Rafi, kill every non-essential system. Lights, heat, life support, everything. We go cold. Rafi's hands flew across the console. One by one, the Aster Vale's heartbeats stopped. The hum of life support died. The warmth leached from the air. Frost crawled across the viewport. Velkar stood in the center of the bridge, armor dimming to absorb the cold, shielding the humans with its own body. Outside, the drifters closed in. Tendrils brushed the hull like blind fingers searching for a pulse. Elias's breath plumed white. On my mark, Mira. He watched the nearest drifter uncoil a tendril thick as a skyscraper. Mouth yawning wide enough to swallow the ship whole. Now. The universe turned white. A lance of pure plasma erupted from the Aster Vale's flank. Hotter than a star's core, screaming across the void in a 30-second roar of man-made sunrise. The nearest drifter recoiled, membranes igniting. Mouths slamming shut in agony. The others twisted away, confused, blinded. Repelled. 30 seconds later, the flare died. The Aster Vale drifted. Dark and cold as any other piece of cosmic debris. Silence. Rafi's teeth chattered. So hard he couldn't speak. Jalen whispered prayers in 3 languages. Mira's voice came over the intercom. Faint with exhaustion. We're dead in space. No engines. No heat. Half the hull's open to vacuum, but they're leaving. Elias stared at the screen. The drifters circled once, twice, tendrils tasting empty cold. Then, slowly they turned and slid away into the dark. Velkar's armor brightened, relief radiating like warmth. "You burned your heart to save your life," it said softly. "Your species is terrifying." Elias laughed, one raw, broken sound. "Welcome to humanity." But the relief lasted exactly 4 seconds. A new contact bloomed on the sensors, far beyond where the drifters had retreated. Not organic, geometric, precise dot, and it was accelerating toward them at impossible speed. Velkar's plates, locked rigid, not drifters. It said, voice suddenly small, worse, the new ship. Sleek, angular, the color of old bone, closed the distance in heartbeats. It did not broadcast, did not slow. It simply arrived, filling the viewport like judgment. A single beam of pale gold light speared out and locked onto the Astorvale's hull. Every console went dark. Then a voice. Not in their ears, but in their minds, perfect and pitiless. Spoke in flawless English, primitive vessel. "You have attracted attention you cannot comprehend. Prepare for assessment." Elias felt his blood turn to ice. Velkar stepped in front of the humans, armor flaring into a defensive corona. "No," it said aloud, voice shaking for the first time. "Not them. Take me." The golden light pulsed, almost curious. Then the voice returned, softer, almost amused, negative. "The fragile ones have proven. Interesting. The test begins now." The Astorvale went dead. No engines. No lights. No gravity. Only the golden beam. Holding them like a specimen under glass. The golden beam held the Astorvale motionless, a moth pinned to black velvet. Every system was dead. Gravity gone. Air already thinning. Frost spider webbed across the bridge in seconds. Then the voice came again, not from the sleek bone-white ship outside, but from inside the Astorvale herself. From the deck plates. From the air. From the marrow of Elias's skull. A voice older than language, patient as stone. "Show me." The words were not English, not Velkar's tongue, not anything. They simply existed. And Elias understood. "Show me why your species deserves the stars." Raffi floated past Elias, eyes wide, mouth working soundlessly. Mira's lips were blue. Yalan clutched his crucifix and prayed aloud, voice cracking in the thinning air. Velkar spun toward Elias, armor flaring in panic. "This should not be possible. That presence. It is a watcher. A relic of the first builders. They seeded the galaxy before thought was born. They do not wake, ever." Elias felt the voice settle behind his eyes like a second heartbeat. "I slept in your hull since your kind still burned wood for warmth. I have watched 10,000 species rise and fall. Most begged, most boasted, most broke. Show me something new." The temperature plummeted. Breath froze as it left their lungs. The emergency lights guttered out one by one until only Velkar's violet glow remained. And even that was dimming. Elias's teeth chattered so hard he tasted blood. "What does it want?" Velkar's answer came small and frightened. "Truth, the essence beneath the noise. Not your machines. Not your weapons." You got another pulse of pressure. The Watcher was inside their thoughts now, gentle but inexorable, peeling back layers the way a surgeon peels skin. Images tore through Elias's mind unbidden. His wife laughing in sunlight. That no longer existed. His daughter's tiny hand in his the day the colony ship never came home. Mira screaming when the news came. About her brother's freighter, Raffi's. Mother teaching him to pray in a language Earth had forgotten. JLEN. Kneeling in the galley every night, whispering forgiveness for sins he'd never committed. Every private grief. Every fragile hope laid bare. The voice spoke again. Softer now. Curious, you carry so much death inside you, yet you still build fires. Elias laughed. One ragged, desperate sound that echoed strangely in the frozen bridge. That's the job, he rasped. We lose everything. We keep going anyway. That's what humans do. The Watcher considered this. Show me. The golden beam tightened. The hull groaned as if the ship itself were being compressed into a single point of pressure. Velkar lunged forward, plates flaring wide in desperate defiance. Take me instead. I am older. I am stronger. They are children. The reply came like distant thunder. Children who refused to die. I would see why. Elias felt his vision tunnel. Black spots bloomed. The cold was no longer cold. It was absence. He was floating away from his body, from the ship, from everything. And then he was angry. He grabbed the railing with numb fingers, hauled himself forward until he floated nose to nose with Velkar's featureless face. You want truth? He snarled at the voice, at the golden light, at the universe itself. Fine. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the crystal shard Velkar had given him. It still pulsed, warm despite the absolute zero around them. This, he said, holding it up. This is what we are. He turned to his crew, met each pair of terrified eyes. Mira, tell it why you still fix things after your brother's ship never came home. Mira's voice was a cracked whisper, but it carried. Because if I stop, he dies twice. Raffi, why do you log every repair like it's a prayer? The kid's tears froze on his cheeks. Because someone has to remember we were here. That we tried. Yalan, why do you feed us even when the rations are dust? Yalan smiled through chattering teeth. Because love is the only thing death can't eat. Elias looked back at the golden light. We're not strong, he said. We're not smart. We're not ancient or graceful or immortal. We're stubborn. We hurt, we bleed. We lose everything, and we still get up and make breakfast and tell jokes and patch the damn hull. Because giving up would be worse than dying. He held the crystal higher. This alien gave us a gift because we offered it bread. Bread, for Star's sake. That's all we have. Crumbs and grief and stupid, reckless hope. And somehow it's enough to make something that crossed the void barefoot stop and say thank you. Silence. The cold pause. The Watcher listened. Elias felt the pressure shift. Not easing, but listening. He floated closer to the viewport until his forehead touched the frost. You want to know why we deserve the stars? His voice was barely a breath, but it filled the ship. Because we'll share them. With anyone. Even things that scare us. Even things that could kill us with a thought. We'll offer them terrible coffee and bad jokes and the last seat on the lifeboat. He laughed again. Softer this time. We're the idiots who keep building fires in the dark just so someone else doesn't have to be cold alone. The golden light flickered. For the first time, the voice sounded almost uncertain. You would give your last warmth to a stranger? In a heartbeat, Elias said. Velkar's plates opened like black petals. Violet light spilling out in awe. The Watcher was silent for so long Elias thought they'd failed. Then the cold rolled. Back like a tide, gravity returned gently. Lights flickered on, amber and warm. Heaters hummed to life. The golden beam outside dimmed, withdrew. Folded into the bone-white ship like a flower closing at dawn, the voice came once more. Not in their minds, but through the Aster Vale's own speakers. Quiet and wondering, I have observed 10,000 species. None offered bread to the void. The sleek ship turned, graceful as a dancer, and began to accelerate away. Before it vanished, a final message bloomed across every screen in flowing. Perfect English. You may keep the stars. You have already paid for them in full. The Aster Vale hung in the dark. Wounded but breathing, Raffi started crying. Mira laughed until she couldn't breathe. Yalan sank to his knees and thanked every god he'd ever heard of. Velkar stood very still. Armor dimmed to a gentle glow. Your species, it said softly, is going to terrify the galaxy. Elias looked at the crystal in his hand, still warm, still beating. He smiled. Tired, broken, and fiercely proud. Good. The Aster Veil drifted on half power, a battered lantern in the endless night. Frost still clung to the inner bulkheads, and every breath tasted of scorched wiring and recycled fear. But they were alive. The hull was sealed with weld patches and prayers. The reactor nursed back to a sullen heartbeat. And the stars outside no longer looked hungry. They looked expectant. Elias sat in the pilot's cradle, wrapped in 3 blankets and Jalen's spare coat. The crystal shard Velkar had given him rested against his chest on a loop of cable, pulsing gently, like a second heart that had decided to stay. Velkar stood at the viewport. No longer towering, no longer alien in the way it had been 12 hours ago. Its plates were dimmed to a soft twilight violet, the glow rising and falling in time with the humans breathing. It had not left their side since the Watcher departed. A new signal arrived without ceremony, not a demand, not a scan. Just 3 notes, perfect and crystalline, repeating every 31 seconds. Then words not in any human language, not in Volkar's. Yet every mind aboard understood them. Anyway.com, we have been waiting. The bridge went still. Raffi's voice cracked the silence. That's not a trap, right? Please tell me that's not a trap. Mira snorted, exhaustion making her blunt. Kid, after the last day, I'm not sure I'd recognize a trap if it came with a bow on it. Elias stared at the source coordinates blooming on the nav screen. 0.87 light-years coreward. Just inside the Orion Spur's dense star cloud. No registry. No beacon. Just a perfect vector and those 3 patient notes. Velkar turned slowly. For the first time, its voice held something close to reverence. The chorus, it said. The first singers. Older than my people. Older than the Watchers. They do not speak unless the galaxy has changed. Elias raised an eyebrow. And we changed it? You offered bread to the void. Velkar replied, and the void answered. They wish to meet the species mad enough to do that. Yalan crossed himself, then laughed, a raw, incredulous sound. We're being summoned by angels. Or archivists, Mira muttered. Either way, we're out of coffee and half our underwear is frozen solid. We're not exactly ambassador material. Elias looked at each of them. Raffi trembling with awe, Mira trying to hide that she was crying. Yalan smiling like a man who'd just been told the universe had a sense of humor after all. He felt the crystal pulse against his sternum. Warm and steady. We're exactly what they asked for, he said quietly. A broken freighter full of stubborn idiots who refused to die politely. He keyed the helm. Plot the course, Raffi. Best speed we can limp to. Raffi hesitated. Captain, we've got maybe 40 hours of life support if we push the reactor. After that, we're breathing prayers. Then we get there in 39, Elias said. Velkar placed one long, careful hand on the helm console. Violet light flowed from its palm into the controls. The reactor coughed, then steadied into a deeper, richer note. I will carry you, it said simply. Mira stared. You can feed our engines? I can share what I am. For a little while Elias met the alien's unseen eyes. Thank you. Velkar's plates rippled in what might have been a shrug. You gave me bread. 36 hours later. The starfield ahead thickened into a nebula of pale gold and rose. A curtain of ionized gas lit from within by something. That was not a star. The chorus waited at its heart. They dropped out of hyperspace into silence, so complete the ship's own creak sounded like gunshots. Space. Here was wrong in the best possible way. Gravity felt optional. light bent in slow liquid arcs. And at the center floated, not ships, not stations, structures of braided light and song, kilometers long, turning gently like the mobile over a cosmic crib. They had no edges, only gradients of color and music that you felt in your teeth and your memories. Hundreds of them, thousands, every shape and note in a chord too vast for human ears, and every one of them was looking. At the Aster Vale, Raffi whispered, "We're an ant at a symphony." A single structure detached from the chorus, smaller than the rest, only a few kilometers across, and drifted toward them with the unhurried grace of a whale. It was translucent, veins of liquid starlight pulsing beneath its surface, and at its heart floated a sphere of pure white. When it was a kilometer away, it stopped. Then it opened. Not a door, not a hatch. It simply unfolded into a perfect sphere of warm, golden air, breathable, earth-normal, smelling faintly of rain on hot pavement and childhood summers. An invitation. Elias stood. The blankets fell away. He was still wearing the same grease-stained shirt he'd had on when the drifters attacked. His hands shook, but his voice didn't. "Velkar," he said, "will you come with us?" The alien's plates brightened to sunrise. "I would follow you into a star." Mira laughed, half hysterical. "We don't even have shoes that match." Yalan tucked his crucifix inside his shirt, smoothed his apron like it was dress uniform, and grinned. God apparently has a sense of humor. Raffi took one trembling step forward, then another. "We're really doing this." Elias looked at his crew, his family, and felt something settle in his chest that hadn't been there since the day he lost everything else. "Yeah," he said. "We are." They stepped together through the ragged hole in the cargo bay, past weld scars and frost, and into the golden air. The sphere of light closed gently behind them. Inside, there was no floor, only warmth and the sense of being held. Shapes moved in the distance, some tall, some vast, some no shape at all, but none approached yet. Instead, a single presence formed in front of them, tall, androgynous, made of slow-turning galaxies and the sound of lullabies in languages that had never existed. It regarded them for a long moment. Then it spoke, and every human felt the words in the place where grief and hope lived side by side. "You brought your dead with you," it said gently. "Yet you did not let them make you cruel." Elias's throat closed. He thought of his daughter's empty bedroom, of Myra's brother, of every empty chair on 1,000 freighters. "We carry them so we remember why we keep going," he said. The presence tilted its head. "Curious, and you offered food to a stranger who could have killed you." Yalan smiled. "My mother taught me never to let a guest go hungry. Turns out the rule works on aliens too." The being's light brightened, almost like laughter. "You burned your heart to save your ship, then walked unarmed into the homes of gods because we asked." Mira shrugged, tears on her cheeks. "We're short on options and long on stupid." The presence looked at Velkar, who bowed deeply. "And you, child of a younger people, chose to stand with them." Velkar's voice was soft. "They gave me warmth when I had forgotten what it felt like." The chorus being stepped closer until its light brushed their skin like sunlight. "Then hear us, little ones. The galaxy is old and tired and has forgotten how to be surprised. You have reminded it." A pause. "A decision older than suns. We will not let you be forgotten again." The golden air shimmered. Gifts unfolded around them, not technology, not weapons, but knowledge shaped like music, like memory, like the feeling of coming home after a very long war, and a promise: when you are ready, we will walk with you. Not as masters, as friends who were waiting for the right hearts to arrive. Elias felt tears freeze on his lashes, and didn't bother wiping them away. He looked at his crew, at Velkar, at the impossible beings who had chosen to see them. Then Then he did the only thing left to do. He offered his hand. The chorus being reached out with a limb made of dawn and took it. Years slipped. By the way light slips through nebulae, slow enough to feel eternal, fast enough that you only notice when the stars have rearranged themselves. The Aster Vale never came home the same. She limped back to human space with a hull full of impossible stories. A reactor that now purred instead of coughed. And 4 humans who carried something in their eyes no colony psychologist could name. The crystal shard Velkar had given Elias hung above the galley table, pulsing gently, and every new crew member who came aboard learned to set an extra mug out. Just in case. They told the truth. All of it. Most people laughed. Some called them liars. A few listened. And then the second ship came. Then the third. Then the 100th. Humanity's first. True starships were still ugly. Still patched with hope and weld seams. But they flew farther and faster than anyone had dreamed. Guided by songs only 4 people and 1 alien could hear. The chorus never gave weapons. They never needed to. They gave coordinates, stories, and the quiet certainty that the universe was no longer indifferent. Velkar stayed, not as an emissary, not as a guest, as family. It learned to swear in 7 human languages, developed an inexplicable fondness for Jalen's terrible coffee, and once spent 3 days helping Rafi, now 26 and no longer quite so nervous, redesigned the Aster Vale's cargo bay into a tiny hydroponic garden that smelled of basil and engine grease. Mira taught it how to patch hull plates with nothing but profanity and a wrench. Elias taught it silence, the kind that happens when 2 beings sit on the observation deck and watch the stars without needing to fill the dark. And humanity kept doing what it had always done. They offered bread to strangers. They adopted orphans, organic, silicon, or made of song. They left porch lights burning in the void. 40-7 years after the Aster Vale's first impossible journey, the ship that started it all hung in a quiet orbit above a blue-green world humanity had never seen before. The chorus led them there. Her hull was scarred and proud, her name painted in careful, loving letters across every patch. Children from a dozen species ran through her corridors now, chasing each other past the galley where the crystal still glowed. Elias Rourke, gray now, slower, but still broad-shouldered and still stubborn, stood on the observation deck with Velkar at his side. The alien's plates had softened over the decades, edges rounded by time and laughter. Violet light dimmed to a grandfatherly twilight below them. The planet's night side glittered with new cities, human, Velkari, and 100 others. Lights like scattered campfire sparks against the dark. Elias held a mug of Jalen's coffee, long cold. Yalen himself had died peacefully 3 years earlier, apron still on, humming the same hymn he'd hummed the day they met Velkar. Mira captained a new ship now, one that could outrun sunlight. Rafi taught engineering on the planet below, surrounded by students who called him professor, and still flinched when he swore. The old crew gathered here once a year. On the anniversary of the day the void first answered, Elias raised the mug in a small, private toast. To absent friends, he said quietly. Velkar's hand, now capable of forming 5 careful fingers when it wanted to, rested on his shoulder. And to the fire we keep passing. It answered. On the planet below, a new signal rose, 3 perfect notes. The same ones that had once summoned a broken freighter to the heart of the chorus. Children of every shape stopped playing to listen. Somewhere, a human girl offered a many-tentacled classmate half her sandwich. Somewhere, a Velkari elder taught a human boy how to shape light with thought alone. The galaxy was still vast, still dangerous, still capable of horrors that could swallow suns, but it was no longer empty. Elias looked out at the stars, the same stars that had once looked back with hunger and felt no fear. Only wonder, only gratitude. Velkar's voice came soft, the translator long since abandoned for something deeper. Do you remember what you told the Watcher? Elias smiled, tired and fierce and unbreakably human. That we build fires in the dark so no one has to be cold alone. Velkar's plates flared one last gentle sunrise. You kept your promise. Far away. In the place where the chorus still sang, a new verse had been added to the oldest song in the galaxy. It had no words in any tongue, but every listener, from the youngest child to the oldest star, understood it perfectly. It sounded like bread breaking in grateful hands. It sounded like laughter echoing down a patched metal corridor. It sounded like a tired freighter captain offering coffee to the void and discovering, to his eternal astonishment, that the void was thirsty. It sounded like home, and across the long dark between stars. That sound traveled faster than light ever could, because humanity had finally arrived, and the universe, ancient and vast and frequently terrible, had decided it was glad. Somewhere in the quiet between heartbeats, the Aster Vale's running lights still flickered, once, twice, 3 times, the same 3 patient notes that had started everything. Come. We have been waiting. And this time, the entire galaxy answered, we're here, we brought bread.